I supported clean slate even last year, and we're just down to the technical changes that we're having conversations about. So we don't have the final version yet, but it is something conceptually I do support. I think it addresses a serious shortage of workers that we have here in the state of New York.
And that was Governor Kathy Hochul speaking this week about the Clean Slate Act. State legislative leaders say they're close to reaching a deal that would seal criminal records for certain offenses after a period of time. Now, details continue to be negotiated on the amount of time that should pass before records become sealed and who this could apply to. But the current version would seal records 3 years after sentencing for misdemeanors and after 7 years for felonies. This does not apply to sex crimes. Here to break it all down for us are our legal experts today, Jeremy Saland and Lance Clark. Thank you both for being here. I know this has become a controversial bill that has been proposed. Jeremy, you actually put a blog out, and I'll start there. The headline, "Damn the abused mother of three, but to your abuser with the Clean Slate Act, New York apologizes to thee."
It's in a little bit of an extreme but eye-catching title. But the point of my blog and my view is that unequivocally, without question, the legislature is right. We had 16059. It's a criminal procedure law that allowed for sealing of certain crimes and a certain amount of crimes after 10 years. The principle is correct, but in my opinion, it's overly broad. It doesn't take into account what someone is doing in another state or has done, such as if someone is assaulted in a domestic case in New York, it could be that a few years later they're living in New Jersey or California and that same thing happens, but there's no judicial review whatsoever. It's just, you get a pass, it's done. That said, again, to be clear, I think the principle is correct. I just believe it's way too overbroad.
Lance, what do you say to critics of the bill who say that it's too broad for one, like Jeremy says, but also say this increases risk to public safety? We've already been hearing so much about that in our city.
I think this helps public safety. As we were stating off air, if I can't get a job because I have a criminal record, I can't get housing because I have a criminal record, I can't feed myself because I have a criminal record. If a human being can't eat, what is he going to do? He's going to decide to eat by any means necessary. And that ultimately at times leads to the crime rate, which we have. I think we spend so much time addressing what the problem entails instead of addressing the actual problem. We put Band-Aids on the problem all the time. What's the point of having this on your record? If I can't get a job, then I can't support myself, then we as a society have to support people. No one wants to be on a train with a cup asking, can you help me? No one wants to sit here and beg someone for help. Society, at least most of society, want to help themselves. This allows them to do that.
What do you say, though, to a business owner who may not feel comfortable with the fact that they would not know if there was a record for a potential employee?
Does it matter? I don't see why it matters if you have a record. If the only reason for me to have a rap sheet is if the person commits an offense another time, the judge and the prosecutor can see that, okay, this is not someone who just had a bad day. This has been a pattern that was happening. But why should that prevent me from employment?
Well, Jeremy, I'll also add to that, and I want your opinion on this as well. Even though I just asked Lance about that question about employers who might be resistant to it, a lot of employers are actually in favor of it for a couple of reasons. They say there's a labor shortage, but in all reality, it kind of takes the responsibility off of them. Say if an employee perhaps attacked a customer, the liability is gone for them.
I think they're covering themselves. And I do believe at the same time, again, the principle is correct to help employ people. But if you have an out-of-state record and you're doing a thorough job and really checking your potential employee, you should be finding that. But it's not fair to say, in my opinion, though, despite what was just said moments ago, it's a rap sheet or a conviction is more than just that. So, for example, this statute would potentially clear not just your most recent criminal record. You could have a burglary conviction. Maybe there was an intentional to commit a sexual crime in there, but for whatever reason, the offer is to the burglary and you plead to the burglary, you do your time. Subsequent to that, there's an identity theft conviction. There's an assault 3 conviction. There's a domestic conviction. All of that gets just clean slate. And to say that we should not look to see who that person is, if they've reformed themselves, have they paid restitution? What have they done to better themselves? So there's a lot of different aspects you should be looking at to see. Yes, you should have the right, and I believe right, to have your case sealed. But yes, there should be balances and checks there to make sure it's done for the right people.
Lance, what do you say about that, looking at the individual rather than just a period of time and the offense?
I think we put the biggest burden on society's most vulnerable people. To look back and say, you prove to me that you've done this, you prove to me that you've done this, jump over those 18 hoops, and then maybe I'll give you a shot. But Jeremy, you like I know that If I robbed a store and that store was attached to a building, then it's a dwelling, then it's burglary in the second degree. We all know that if I brush into someone on the 4, 5, or 6 train, and you were there during the office, and I was there back then, we were, you know, you at the DA's office and I was at legal aid, and we saw these cases that came in. Just because someone has a conviction, it is not indicative of the person that they are. And let's be frank, in this city, when you can have a bottle of wine and some grapes and have a nice picnic in Central Park, but if I walk through a park in Harlem or Washington Heights, I'm getting arrested because it's a crime to drink in a public park. But these crimes are not enforced across the board. So you have a group of people who have been selectively the law has been selectively applied to, selective prosecution, selective incarceration. Then after you have navigated through all of that, now the onus is on you, and prove to me.
To Lance's point, I think you're sort of making an overgeneralization. No one is concerned about alcohol and open containers, and people don't get arrested, they get summons for that. But it's not the minor things. That's why the misdemeanors are less concerning, other than in a domestic situation. And someone who might have taken a batterer's program or failed that batterer's program, ultimately they get sentenced on whatever their determination is. They've demonstrated they can't or are not ready to sort of have that clean slate. So there's, again, 3 years on a misdemeanor, 7 years on a felony. From what I have seen in some other states, it's 7 years on a misdemeanor, 10 years on a felony. Domestics are carved out. Sexual offenses are carved out. Violent crimes are carved out. So I keep on going back. The principle is correct. Lance is absolutely right. People need to be able to have jobs. People need to work. But it can't just be everyone gets a blank check and you start anew. You have to earn it within reason.
I'll give you time. We have to wrap it up. 10 seconds for you to respond.
No, listen. When I was a young lawyer, we used to have a saying: a misdemeanor in Brooklyn is a felony in Manhattan. So if you have those felonies from the Manhattan overly prosecutorial office that we went through, what are you saying to those people? What, they get no help. Now I have to take care of them, and you have to take care of them. It's my tax dollars. They can't afford to take care of themselves. How are we helping society? This is not okay.
We're at the same place. How we get there is a different issue.
That sounds like a great way to end it. You guys agreeing on something at the end here. Good to hear you both talk, though. Great debate. You guys will go on forever. By the way, we have a lot more about this on our Off Topic on Politics podcast. You can listen to that. It is available everywhere where you get your podcast now.